Good morning, this is Mr. Precella, and today we're going to start our discussion over interest, and we're going to look at something called the simple interest formula, which is I equals P R T. That's P times R times T. This capital I is the amount of what's called simple interest. This is the most basic interest formula. P stands for the principal or the present value. That's the amount if it's a loan, or the amount of or if it's the amount of money you're putting into a bank or something. R is the stated interest rate. And T is time, but it's time in years. Okay? T should be the number of years. If it told you 36 months, you would need to convert that to years. How do we convert 36 months to years? Well, you would divide by 12. Okay? Now, there's a few other formulas that go hand in hand with this simple interest formula, I equals PRT. There's something called the future value. If we let A be something called the future value, if P, the principal, is thought of as the present value, and A is the future value, on a financial timeline, we can think of it like this. If you had some money that you put into the bank today, you put $100 or let's say $1,000 in the bank and leave it there for a year. At the end of that time period, you're going to have more than just that $1,000. You're going to have the money you put in there plus the interest. So if we wanted to write a formula for future value, we'd say future value equals present value plus interest. There's another way we could write this formula, and that would be to replace this I, replace this I with what we have right here. P times R times T. And in some elementary algebra class, somewhere along the way you've done a little bit of algebra, you would have factored variables out of an expression. If I factored this capital P from each one of these, what would go in the parentheses here? Well, I'd have to have a 1 plus R times T so that formula there, here's three ways of writing a formula for calculating the present value. If I'm remembering correctly, like on some of these homework problems here, it tells you, okay, use the formula, and that gives you the A equals P times 1 plus RT formula, okay? But let's go ahead and jump into these problems. Let's look at problem number 1. Okay, problem number 1 says, find the amount of simple interest. Well, that's the I equals PRT formula. So I is P, the principal is 100, times R. Now that interest rate should always be stated as a percent, so as a decimal. So 12% we'd write as 0.12 times T, that would be 2. So we have 100, oops, here's my calculator, And I'm going to punch in 100 times 0.12 times 2, so 24. So the interest here is $24. Now, if it had actually asked, well, okay, suppose you invested $100, at the end of the 2 years, how much do you have in your account? The answer wouldn't be $24. The answer would be 124. But here all they're asking is for the amount of interest, so 24. Now, let's do number 2. Here we're told the simple interest is $3,000 for 4 years. Right, the simple interest on $3,000 for 4 years is $600. So what is the rate? So in this one, we're going to use that same formula, but we want to know R. The amount of money being invested, the principal is $3,000. The time is 4 years, and $600 is the amount of interest. So we're going to use that formula, I equals PRT, but instead of finding capital I, we know capital I, we know T, we know P, we've got to find R. So let me see, where can I do this one? Do it right. Right. I'm going to work it right out here above the problem. Okay, this is number 2. I equals P R T. The I is 600. The P is 300. No, 3,000. The R we don't know. And the T is, what's T? 4? So let's go ahead and multiply the 3,000 times 4. That would be 12,000. And then divide both sides by, how would I get this R by itself? Well, I have to use a little bit of algebra and say, okay, divide both sides by 12,000. And this should be a percent. We have a fraction here. So how do we convert a fraction to percent? Well, you go 600 divided by 12,000 and then times 100. That should give us a percent. I said 6,000. I meant 600 divided by 12,000 times 100, 5. So the interest rate here is 5. Okay. Any questions on how I did that one? Number 3 is another one like that, but I think maybe I have room to do number 3 right here. We're told I is 2464, P is 7,700, R is 8%, so 0.08 times T. Let's multiply the 7,700 times 0.08. 7,700 times 0.08 is 616. I just punched that into my calculator. T. So let's do some algebra. What will I do to get the T by itself? Divide by 616. And Now let's figure out 2464 divided by 616 is 4. So 4 years, that's how long that money was invested. In order to earn $2,464 in interest, I think the time the money would have had to been invested is 4 years. Now, number 4. Use the future value formula to determine the missing value. Well, there's several, let's look back up here. There's several ways of writing the future value formula, but it seems like the way that they're going to be using it, if you look at the next homework assignment problem, is this way. A equals P times 1 plus RT. So let's plug in there. A equals, put a 1900 in place of the P, parentheses, 1 plus R is 0.03 times T. T is 5. Let me pull up my calculator and show you how I punch this in. Okay. To punch this into your calculator, I'm going to punch it in just as it's written. 1900 parentheses 1 plus 0.03 times 5, close parentheses, hit enter, 2185. So if someone put $1,900 into a bank account for 5 years with this 3% interest rate, at the end of the 5 years, this isn't the amount of interest, that's how much money they'll have in the account. If you wanted to know the amount of interest, well, you could do I equals PRT, or you could just subtract it from the 1900, or subtract 1900 from this. Number 5, use the formula for future value and elementary algebra to find the missing quantity. This is going to be a little bit more involved. You're going to plug 1944 in for A. P is what you don't know. 1 plus R times T. So this one's different because we got to figure out P. Oh. Well, let me start punching some stuff in the calculator. I'm going to punch in the stuff that's in the parentheses first. We'd have, let's see, we're going to put this so y'all can see it. I'm punching in the stuff in the parentheses. 1 plus 0.04 times 2. 1 plus 0.04 times 2. So that would give us a 1.08 P. So to get the P by itself, divide both sides by 1.08. And now we're going to punch in 1944 divided by 1.08. So P is 1,800. That means they deposited $1,800, and after 2 years they have $1,944. Well, I think it might be time for a little break right now, so we'll pick up with number 6 in a little bit. Okay. So thank you for watching. I'll be back in a little bit doing more of this.